So first, let's add the needed packages for Entity Framework Core into our application. And we'll do it using NuGet. I'm going to do it by right-clicking the dependencies and click Manage NuGet Packages. And here, I'm going to go to Browse, and I'm going to search for the ones I need. And the first one I need is Microsoft Entity Framework Core. And then dot, and we want to install the SQL Server. So this is the one we need to install. So currently the version is 3.00. So let's click Install and click OK. And of course we're gonna accept the terms and conditions. So that's the first package that we needed to install. The next one is Microsoft.Entity Framework Core without the SQL Server. So let's select that and install that. So I installed it and it's currently the version 3.00 as well. And that's all that we need for now. We have our Microsoft Entity Framework Core as well as the SQL Server that goes with it. So we can now go back to our code. So what we need to create now is the database context. As I mentioned earlier, this is basically the bridge between our code and all the data in the database. This is a class, so let's just add a new class to the models folder. So click Add and New Class. And I'm going to call it App DbContext. So currently, even though I named it as DbContext, it actually is not a DbContext. To make this class a database context class, it needs to inherit from DbContext base class. So let's bring that in. And we need to bring in the namespace for it. And the namespace is in the package that we installed, which is the Entity Framework Core. So we have the DbContext in our class, but in order to make it work, we need to set up some options. And that is done in the constructor of this class. So let's just create a constructor. And here, we will pass the DbContext options. So it's going to be DbContext options right here. And these are the options that are to be used by the DbContext. So this is a built-in class, and we'll apply it to our app DbContext because that's where our DbContext resides. And I'll just call it options. And now we have to simply go to our base class and pass the options to it. So base and pass the variable options. And nothing needs to be done inside the constructor. This will simply create the DbContext options and apply it to our app DbContext class. So now we need to tell our DbContext what entities it is going to manage. And that is of course our candy entity. So we can create a DB set for our candy entity which will be managed by app DbContext during runtime. So after the constructor, I'm going to create a public DB set property. And this is gonna be of the type candy. And I'm just gonna call it candies. And it's a property, so get and set. And of course, we also need a DbContext to manage categories, so we add DbSet for categories as well. So it's gonna be another public property for DbSet of category. And this one I'll call categories. And once again, it's a get and set for the property. Alright, so we have our DbContext and DbSets. But now, how do we actually find them? Well, of course, we need to connect to the database first. So let's figure out how to do that next.